Hi everyone, and thanks a million for joining me for day 11 of 100 days of code. Let's get into it. No messing about today, and thanks a million. So, here we go. So we left yesterday with this error on our chart.js component, so we're going to just get stuck in and figure out what's going wrong. So, chart.js, line 6. Props is coming in. So let's just have a look at it in our actual code. So line 6. So yeah, we're just making a bar chart component where we have our chart and then we have our bars. Something's gone wrong. Look at me forgetting to commit the whole time. I'm an absolute wagon. Oh, what to do? Okay. So I'm going to just add all these and commit because my green lights. Genie macaroni. Okay, so just do git add everything. Shoot. So we need to cd into our project folder first, which is my app. And then we can do git add everything. And then we can do git commit starting bar chart day 11. Well, we'll say day 10 because we haven't actually made any progress yet. Starting bar today, made loads of progress. Starting bar chart, and that'll do, and we'll just push it so I get my green light, and now we will continue. So we have this error. Const chart. Right, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to close everything else, close others. I'm going to open a similar file, so one that we know is okay. So how about expenses, and I'll just split the screen so we can just check if we see anything really silly, because often it's just something silly. So chart bar, is it called chart bar? It is called chart bar. Okay, that seems unintuitive, but I guess it makes sense alphabetically as to where we'll find it in the code. And I'm just going to wrap this and this so I can see everything. So we're defining our function here for our page, which is called chart. We're passing in our props. Then we have a const that we've declared a constant value, which should be the props.datapoints.map. So what I'm going to do is console log out props and make sure that we're getting that. That makes sense because something's going on the next line, and on the next line we're using the props. So possibly this might give us an idea of something. So that's not a function. Above error occurred. Right, let's just start at the top. I'm going to clear everything, reload, and let's see, console, back to the top. Okay, so we have something. Data points, where's that coming from? Let me just log out some text also. So we'll say props from chart, and just to be sure, actually what I'm going to do is duplicate this and log out props.datapoints, because they should also exist. Yes, because we're trying to map over those. So let's see now, and we will press play and we'll have a goosey gander at what's going on. So props from chart, data points true. Like surely that's why we don't just need a variable coming in here like a boolean, apologies, true or false. We need actual data points. So that's the issue, and that's why it's not running it. So where are we getting these props from, and why are we not passing the correct thing? So we're getting our chart our data points are coming from our chart bar, or are they? They are not. So let me just search for data points, expenses chart. Okay, so props, we have our data points being passed through chart data points. It's because I didn't call it chart data points, and I'm just looping over data points. Chart data points. But then here, is that? So here, we've gone through each of the expenses and we want to get props.expense. I need to take this slow now. Okay. So here, we're looping over each of our expenses. So I'm going to just console log out the expense as well. Console log expense from expenses chart.js, and then we'll just say expenses, and this should give us a bit more of an idea. Expense of props.expense, so expense. So should that be props.expenses instead of props.expense? Props.data points. Don't map is not a function. Okay, we know that. So we'll keep looking. Okay, like this isn't really telling me very much personally, so that's why I'm just sort of breezing on by it. And I think that this isn't working as a function because we're passing in the wrong thing. So do you know what? Look, this is a bit of a like hacky solution, but why would I be looping over an expense and just have one expense? Surely I need to have many expenses in there. So I'll just change that and see if that does anything. But that was just a guess, so it's not really good to be guessing now. Okay, so that's not iterable. So we were okay with expense there. Right. So we've the wrong thing coming in here, and this, where is this coming from? The props. I should know this, guys, but so our chart component is being called in chart bar. Is it? No. Import chart in our expenses chart. And we use it here, and we want to use the data points. I thought Max had something else after data points. I'm just checking the video for a moment in case I get a bit of inspiration, because I mean, I also should just look harder, but I don't know. Well, I do. I know it's because we're not passing in the correct data, I think. I'm sure. What did I say in one of my earlier videos is to trust your good instinct. So my good instinct, this cannot be being mapped over if it's just true. So that's why this map function is not working. I'm certain of that. So But why? Where are we getting that from? So yeah, data points is just coming in as a boolean. Sorry. So just need to fix my phone. So and sorry the quality was so bad yesterday on the video. There was a real lag on my face. I know this isn't ideal the way it is now anyway, probably, but yeah, hopefully it's okay for you, and sorry about the lag yesterday. So come on, Leanne. Props. Let's Google this, because where do the props come from? Where do props come from? Because maybe just a little explanation of it and I'll be like, oh yeah, of course. Where do props come from in React when you're passing them in? Props are only passed. So basically that's how props are passed to React components. As you may have noticed, props are only passed from top to bottom. There is no way to pass props up to a parent component. So Robin seems knowledgeable. And then we'll just check React's actual official documents. And I'll also open this. I always open a load of them, but let's check the official documents first. They're just like JavaScript functions. Yes, of course. So they're arbitrary. Oh, so you just call them props. Yeah. So it's literally just like a function where you would pass something in to the function. Simplest way to define a component. Yeah. With data and returns a React element. We call it function components because they are literally JavaScript functions. Like, still, where are you getting this name when you're just passing in the props here? And where did the props come from? But we're figuring that out, so. Okay. Yes, we can make our own components. Aha. Yes. So when we're defining the component that we want, we pass in the props and then we can access it. So we need to have our props equal to some value. So we're literally just passing in a thing. We haven't completed it. So back here in our chart bar, in our chart we just have data points, but we haven't equaled this to anything. So now we will actually have the props that are being passed into chart when we pass in our data points. Come on, this is it. I think I'm pretty sure we're on to a winner here. Yes, guys, we've got it. Okay, super de duper, super de duper. So let me explain what just happened there, and I'm over the moon. Right, so what was going wrong was we just had chart with data points defined like this. So yes, we do want to pass some data points in, and this is why it was coming in as a boolean, because yeah, we've passed something, that's true, but we haven't told it what are these data points, what do you actually want to pass in. So we need to pass in our chart data points, and see, now we can see those props coming through to our other component because we've properly passed them in, and they're coming in as the full array, which we can then do things with. So we weren't actually passing any data points in. So that's super de duper, so happy, great. So that's what was going on there. So now this is a good time, things like this, when you solve a little problem, to just commit your code, because things can still go wrong, and it's just nice to save your progress when you've got somewhere that's either fixed a problem or you've done a large body of work. So that's my advice on committing. So commit, we'll give it a message, fixed data passing, fixed props passing, fixed props being passed to chart component. Woohoo! Great, okay. And then we'll push that up. So that's super. Let's keep going. Delighted that that wasn't a big rigmarole like yesterday morning when we were trying to get our console log working within a render, within a return and a render. So that's super. So we'll go back to our console here. It looks like we still have some other errors. Each child should have a unique key. Check the render method of chart. So I should pass in an ID as well, I think. And the value could be an ID. So let's just see. I'm just going to search for ID and see what we've done in previous cases. Not the best thing to look for. Okay. So here, this was on save, and we saved our, spread out our entered expense data and put an ID on it. And then we just have our IDs here. So, check the render method of chart. So I'm going to just Google add an ID, add ID to render React. And that's another thing that comes with time, guys, really, is being able to read and Google for the correct terms when you're looking for an issue and a solution. So for a very long time, when I was looking for a solution, I just wouldn't be searching for the right words. So I'd be using too many words, or not the right words, or not the correct keywords, and you will be on the internet all day looking around, going down rabbit holes because your search terminology just isn't specific enough and it doesn't call out the problem well enough. So copy your error, take out some of the fluff around that error. So I'll show you an example here now with the error that we have, just to make this very clear. So for an example, this is saying, can I check the render method of chart? So each child in a list should have a unique key prop. So we'd copy this error and then we'd come over here to our browser and paste that in. But once we've pasted that in, then what we see here is, well, chart is a specific name for my particular project. So we can remove that. That's not assisting the search. It's actually just throwing it off, because other people's render methods will have returned a specific value for the particular component they're looking at. So take out these general things, and if there's a URL or a path, take that out, because it'll just throw off your search results. And now this is probably a good enough search term to be looking for. But one thing I would add is React, the framework or the language that you're using, because that will seriously assist. So here we go. We've already got a hit on Stack Overflow for this exact problem, it seems. And he's included his name, but we may not have found it before and gone down a rabbit hole. So the first thing I was going to say about the rabbit hole is that's natural. That it just takes time to learn the skills, to get better and better. You'll keep getting better as you practice. So try not to get too frustrated. I know it's frustrating when you're stuck on something for a week and you're down a rabbit hole and you've just made your code worse. But it happens, and it happens in the beginning, and you will get better and you will get quicker. And now I can find solutions for my problems very simply. So with 4 years experience, but even after 1-2 years, it got better, it gets better. But in the beginning, the first year, it was a mess. So don't be hard on yourself, and just know it's a process you have to go through, and hopefully you'll go through it quicker than I did, especially with me telling you that's going to happen and how to actually narrow down your search. So just so you all are aware of that, it's an important thing to note. Okay. So he's built an app with React Native. Well, we're not using React Native, but we will still read this solution because they are very similar, and it seems still quite pertinent to our particular issue. But if we don't get the answer, that's okay. He is talking about a slightly different framework that works for iOS and Android, but they're very tightly coupled. You just use this React Native for developing applications on mobile. Yes, and it works on both iOS and Android, so it's brilliant. Before, you used to have to know Swift for iOS, and I don't even know what you used to know for Android. Well, I do, I just can't think of it. So yeah, sorry about that. But this React Native does it for both of them, so okay, great. So then we have, what is the purpose of this warning? They link to this page where the complete different things are discussed which have nothing to do with React Native but with web-based React.js. So we'll go and have a look at this page that served this man no use whatsoever, but it's the language that we actually need to know. So we're working in React.js. So keys help React identify which items have changed or added or removed. Keys should be given to the elements inside the array to give the elements a stable identity. So I think I might have already thought of the solution. Perhaps I just need an ID in here as well. Like, I was thinking our value could be used as an ID, and maybe we need to actually pass it in when we're defining that we want to use these chart data points. I was initially thinking we'd have to do something like key and then ... and give the key or the ID that we're going to use, but I'm just going to try and add an ID to this because I think that this could work, because our actual array doesn't have, and they start at 0. I've told you this many times, and there's me going and sticking in a 1. So just to be aware, arrays start at 0 and our values are also starting here at 0, so we'll keep them the same because it's just a better practice than confusing things with IDs that are 1 increment plus 1 that are a number higher. It'll just be confusing. So let's see how we get on. 7. And 11. Let's save that and check if that's done anything positive. Don't see the error anymore, you guys. So that has fixed our error. We just needed to pass in an ID. So again, I'm going to save this because that's another fix. And when you get through a fix, CD. Well, I won't actually bore you with that's fine, with just committing again. Well, I will. Now I've started it, but I won't do it next time. Next time I'll just wait until the end or when I'm off screen. So we're focusing on the development, but this is also important, and I do need to do a video on Git as well to properly explain everything that's going on here and how you can interact with different branches and you know, use Git efficiently. And do check out my Git video where I go through the full setup of Git if you've never set it up before. It's very useful. So ID added to array in expenses chart. And once you do add this as well, it will log your change and it will also log the file, so you don't need to give the file. So what happened there was I accidentally put a semicolon, which happens sometimes. It's right beside the same button as the single dash apostrophe. So yes, this can happen. So in order, if you do something wrong, you can just do CTRL and C, and that will bring you back your terminal just to enter some more information there, like rather than being stuck in this strange place. Oh, I used the old commit message. Oh well, so then we're going to just push. Well, actually, let's show you how to do this. So I accidentally went up and used the old commit message. So because that commit message has already been committed and we actually want a different message, you can amend your commits after you've committed them. So you just go git commit amend. So you send in the flag and you pass it amend, and then you give it the message and you say IDs, and you give it a more appropriate message if you accidentally gave it an incorrect message, which I did. I gave it the previous message, so ID is added to array. And you don't need to specify the component because it will tell you what component was changed, but you can do if you want to. So git push then. So there we go. At least we got to have a look at an amended commit, which is useful. And all of these going on here, I'm just going to get rid of all these. So this should be, okay, these can all go. Yep. And then I'm just going to close this down again and we will continue. So that's great. So I'm going to just listen to the video for a moment and see what's going on. Oh, this is my water bottle, by the way. It's an old vodka bottle, quite clearly, but yes, in order to stop using reusable plastic, it's the perfect size. It's perfect for your desk because it's 750 milliliters. It's perfect for your desk because if you knock it over, which I won't knock it over, but just if you were to knock it over, it has a smaller hole, so it's going to spill out quicker, as opposed to a big huge glass or like a liter jug that just everything is going to go everywhere. Like you have a moment to catch this, and I'll leave it far away from everything. But yes, use an old vodka bottle for your water bottle. The absolute ones are great. I've dropped it a ton of times and they just don't break either, so that's also super. And then I did go and buy a proper water bottle, and I'm just waiting for Max to load here. I did go and buy a proper water bottle, like a really nice one, reinforced. It was lovely. It had like blue flowers on it and stuff. Realised I really like the colour blue, strangely. That's just occurred to me. But and I dropped it the first time and it smashed everywhere, and it was like 15 quid. So just polish off a bottle of vodka one weekend, or you know, and use that instead. Top tip for the day. It's really useful though. I do recommend it. You just don't want to be using unreusable water bottles because it's not good for you. The plastic leaches into the water, so we're consuming enough plastic as it is. It's in everything, so cut it down. This is just not loading for me, so I'm going to actually connect to my phone. I've been doing that a lot lately. Hopefully the technician comes soon, because actually better, because the internet's not great at the moment. Git, just write that down because I will do a video for you on Git. It's a top skill that you have to know coming into coding, and you will be using it. So I'll do an in-depth video and I'll go through everything that I know in Git, which is quite a bit. There's a few things I'll research everything, don't worry. So this is starting to play now. Great. Okay. So guess it's not very ladylike to just swig out of a big bottle though, but look, we have to stay hydrated. That's the bottom line. So hydrate your brain and body. And now in expenses.js, we're going to go to expenses chart. Okay, that's done. Cool. Okay, So our expenses filter is here. This should be expenses. And then we have our items. Okay. So. So const expense of props.expenses. Yes. So Max did have props.expenses here, which makes total sense. How can we iterate over one expense? We can't do that. So I should have, again, trusted my gut. Trust your gut, guys. I should have trusted my gut on that one, because you can't iterate over one item. If you just have one thing, well, you can. You just display it once. But clearly that's not what we're trying to do. We have a list of many different items that we want to display as we go through each of them, as we go through the for loop. So yeah, we don't just want to do, if you see a for loop, generally you are trying to iterate over something with a few items in it. Or you could check if the list was empty first, but you would check if the list was empty first, and if it wasn't, iterate over the items in the list. So, which could be one item, but generally you want to iterate over something with more than one item. So it wouldn't make sense to just write code that would only account for one item. If there happened to be one item in the list, okay, it would only display one item. But we're not going to write a for loop for one item. We'd write that a different way. So, okay. So now if we select a year with some expenses, and why don't I have a chart? Where's my chart? Expense. Chart. Taking the data points. Which it's calling data points. So then within our chart, we have our data points coming in. We know they're going in. We can get rid of those console logs now because we don't need them. And we should be returning a chart bar for each data point. And where are we showing this all then? In our expenses chart? No. In our expenses. So we have our filter here, and our bar chart should be underneath it. So, not that this is going to do anything, but just to test it out, I'm going to move these components above our filter and just see if something twigs or changes. So now our filter's not showing. Oh, our filter's down here. Now. Okay, I'm going to inspect the page and check if that element is actually on the page. Okay, so I'm going to just go back to the way we were for a moment, save, and check out these errors, because these are going to tell me what's actually going on. Okay, so I thought we solved that. expense content is assigned. Card is defined but never used. Okay. I'm also trying to remember to like not speak under my breath at all. Sometimes you're just thinking, but all of my thinking should be done out loud. So I will do that. So my expenses list.js card is defined but never used in new expense, so we won't worry about that. And then our expenses list, expenses content is assigned but a value is never used. So we've defined our expenses content here. Which says no expenses available. And then if we do have something available, we're reassigning it down here to an expense item. So I don't see how that's not used. Is assigned a value but never used. Expenses, expense list.js, line 13. Excuse me, so what I think it could be, expenses content is equal to props.items.map. So should we be looping through our expenses content here? No. 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 So what I was thinking there is, should we be looping over our excuse me, expenses content instead of props.item.map? But we shouldn't, because I was thinking this was getting reassigned down here, but it's getting reassigned to what's in props.items, and then it's mapping it out per each. So for all of the expenses, it's getting each expense and it's transforming it into an expense item, because that's what we're telling it to do in this block of code here. So expense content should be overwritten. Sorry, it should be overwritten or overwrote with the content that's coming in if we have more than one expense. Because if there's none, we show this. Okay, so actually, I think I know what it is. We need to get rid of this line. Or, no. So the reason I thought we needed to get rid of this line is because down here we're checking if we have no expenses. So why are we also doing it here? If we've checked here that we have no expenses, so maybe if this should equal return, because these to me are doing the same thing. We've got expense content, which is just equal to this one thing, and then if there is more than one expense, we don't have that check-in anymore. If there's more than one expense, so there's something wrong with this component. I just need to figure out what it is. So I think that if the length is equal to 0, then the expense content should be equal to this string, and then otherwise it should be mapped. So how do I even say otherwise? But let's first of all do this, because if we have no expenses, so if props.items.length, so nothing has come back, and I'll also console log out the props, because that's how we can just see what it is we're getting. It's always handy to do this. If you're unsure or you have an error, just start console logging things out. And really, I want to get better at using the debugger. So you can actually debug your code like this and then run it and start debugging, and you can select through each of the lines of code, and it's just an easier way to do it. So let's actually see now. But I don't have loads of experience. I need to get better at let's just do it in Chrome. Yeah, no, so I knew it was gonna, let's just try and launch Chrome and see. Oh, right, okay. Okay, so let's just try and run it. Start debugging. Launch Chrome. Launch Chrome. Is you launching? Doesn't seem to be launching. Okay. So the debugger, that's another topic for a video for you guys and for myself, because when I teach you, I learn also. And yes, these videos are about me just figuring stuff out, but there is videos on my channel where I specifically teach you different topics, which hopefully both are valuable. So we will just continue on here. So expenses, yes, so let's close everything else because we've got too many files open, and save. Expense content is not defined, so let's just define expense content as let, because we know we're going to override it. I'm just going to do this for a moment. So now it's defined, and now we should be able to see our props. Expense content is still not defined. Okay, so it doesn't like what I've done here on line 11. Oh, because I didn't say let. So down here we were just using something without properly telling it what this is. So we need to say let expense content. Oh no. Okay. So that's not it either. So we'll just go back to the original piece of code so I can see what the props are, because that would be helpful. So if I leave my console log there, if I take this out, save, expense content. What did I do here? So let's just check the changes I actually made. Okay. Okay. So I'm just going to copy this console.log because that's actually all I want. I could just get rid of this bit too, but just to be safe, I'm going to go back, get back to where our error was, go to our expenses list, add in our console.log to see what's in our props, save it, and see where we stand. So it looked like we had nothing in our props there, but just to be sure, yes, so our props is coming through as an empty array again. So that's why we have, oh, that's just because we haven't changed this yet. So now we have our props. No, yes, now we have our props because we actually selected them, so there was something on the page, so there was something to pass through. And what we're trying to do with this is check if the length is equal to 0, then return this. So that's okay, because we see that we have that when it's equal to 0. And then if it's not equal to 0, we see we get back our expenses. So nothing is wrong here. So we're looking at the wrong component, is what I'm getting. That's what I'm getting. So where were we? And what was the, oh yeah, we don't have our filters, our bar chart, excuse me. So back to the bar chart and our expenses list. Let's just close this. Let's go back to our file explorer. Expenses. Okay. So to check the random method of chart. Okay. Okay, so our expenses filter. Expenses chart. What about if I pass nothing in? Will it show me something? Is there something wrong with how I'm passing it in? I don't even know if we can do that, but I know in React you can have self-closing components like this, but just if it's expecting something. So no, this is expecting props. So that's why I think that's not going to work there. Yeah. So we'll just go back. And try to figure out what's going on. Okay. Expenses chart. So what about if we try and use this expenses chart component somewhere else and just see how that works, because then we'll know if we can see it. So perhaps I'll try and add it into the new expense area, because we know we can also see this particular part. So this is where we have our new expense, and then whether it's a new expense or we're not editing or we are editing, we either show the button to cancel or else the expense form. So in here, but then I have nothing to pass in. Maybe I can just pass in a boolean or something. Expense chart, which then it's still not going to show me anything. But let's just give it a whirl, because we're here now. And this is my thought process. So the reason why this is going red and underlined is because we don't have the top level div. So I'll just add that. And now we can at least give this a bit of a bash. Whether it works or not is a different issue, but we will try this. And then I'll just pass in, like, can I just say true literally? And see if that will do anything. No. No. Okay, yeah, so it's not iterable. So, I mean, it knows it's there, obviously. Let's just try and pass the entered expense data, and we're doing this on our new expense, and our expenses chart takes expenses, filtered expenses in this case, but we're going to just pass in something else here because we don't have filtered expenses on this particular page. We have got entered expense data. We know that we can use that, hopefully. So let's just see. This is how you figure things out. Maybe I'm just going, okay, so no. So expenses, can I just pass in like 1, 2, 3 to give it something to loop? No. An array 1, 2, 3. I'm really guessing here, but you know. Okay, no. Right, so we're going to abandon this ludicrous approach and just go back to actually trying to figure this out. So let's see what's going on. Okay, sorry, my chair. Still didn't WD-40 my chair. I'll also write that down. Because it's one squeaky chair. Squeaky chair, got my derriere on the squeaky chair. Sorry. Okay, so, serious face. Okay, so I promised you guys I would sing my random songs that come into my head, so I just love random songs. They just give me like a laugh, so let's fix these things as well, because this should help. So if we go to newexpense.js, card is defined but never used, so we do not need this here because we're not using it, and we also don't need this because that was just me having a whirl at trying to fix our issue. So now that error should go away at least. So it's still there, so I'm going to do a hard refresh because now it's not defined anymore. And now, like, yes, so this could be definitely causing the issue because each child should have a unique key prop. Check the render method of chart. So I think we still have to pass in an ID. Let's close the other files for a moment and look at our chart bar and our chart, our two new components that we have made. And at chart bar, let's click on this and see where it brings us. So this needs an ID, or does it? So everywhere, yeah, we need to have a unique ID on the chart items. Do we literally just need an ID here? Oh my god, I think this could be it. So we need to pass an ID. So data point dot ID, because we added that ID. Okay, so we still don't see our chart, but I think that error has gone away. So no, it has not. So I'll get rid of this for the moment, and let's just check out our data point. So we're defining our data point just here, so that's okay. So let's go to our props of our, where we're defining our chart. So chart, and it's obviously going to start like this. So chart data points, chart data points. We have an ID now. Chart data points, there they all are. And then chart bar. So let's console log out these props and just see what's coming in here as well. Console log props and props. So, okay, so there's everything. Why is our IDs not on there? Because we definitely added them. That should be part of our array now. Not just value, but we have an ID part. So the props coming into our chart part does not have the ID that we have specified in our array. So our chart bar does not have the ID. So the reason that the fact that the chart bar doesn't have this ID, that's really throwing me off, because it's the same array that we're using. So I'm going to go in and do a bit more investigation into the props and where it's passing from and where it's coming from and stuff. But first of all, I'm actually going to just restart my terminal, because surely that should be the exact same data. I don't see why I can't see that there, because it should be there. So my app, and we're going to npm start, just for sanity's sake. So let's do that. Have a stretch while we're waiting. So, and I'll just close the other one, and let's see. So, still don't see our filters. Let's go to the console. We still have this error. So we're still not passing something correctly here. So these props don't have an ID, and it seems like the problem is trickling on down to everything. So I'm going to check this out. When you don't have stable IDs for rendered items, you may use the index item as the key as a last resort. I have seen that. So let's try to use the index and just see if it fixes it. Although this is not how it says here. We do not recommend using indexes if the order of items may change, and you know, we're using dynamic stuff here, so although the months aren't going to change, are they? So, but still, I'd prefer to find the better solution, the one that you can use in situations where things are going to change, just for peace of mind. But let's try that anyway. So where was our error to begin with? It was in check the render method of chart. So back here, when we're mapping, I'm going to just try and add this index. Then I should, that's okay, I think, and then key equals index. Index. Did I put key earlier on, or did I put ID? So earlier on when I tried this, I'm not sure. Line 11. I'm just wondering why it would give me this error now, you know, because that is a bit confusing as well. So let's just keep reading the documentation for a moment. extracting components with keys. Keys only make sense in the context of the surrounding array. If you extract a list item, you should keep a key on the list item elements. In the array, yes, rather than on the li elements in the list item itself. Okay, so wrong. There is no need to specify a key here. But this is correct. Numbers equals props.numbers. Okay. Okay. So let's try this. Although, when I log out my... So that didn't work anyway. When I log out my data points, do I have my IDs here? Because I should. So let's just console log out the data point values and see what's in there, and then see what we can use as an ID and try that. So console log data point values, and let's save, check out what we get. Oh, maybe I just needed to oh, we can't see our chart. Oh, there's our data point values. And it's just a load of numbers. Oh yeah. Okay. So yeah, how okay, so I sort of know what's going on here. So what's going on is our data point values is actually, we've gone through the props and each of the data points, and we've mapped each of these data points. So for each of the props coming in, we have a list of data points, and we want to go through them one by one, data point by data point, and pull out the number. So that is actually what we're doing here. So I first need to log out my props and see what that is instead. So this can actually just go, because that's not very useful. We know now that that's just the list of numbers, which I should have known anyway, but it just didn't sink in until I logged it out. So now props, and I'm going to just do this because I think we have a few props on this page. I already had props logging out somewhere. So here's our props data points array of objects. It has an ID, so we should be able to use this ID in our chart bar. So if we go key equals data point dot ID, and save that now, we still do not have our list, our filter, chart bar chart, chart bar chart. Yeah, we still don't have our bar chart. So at least we haven't made any more errors, I guess. So we'll continue tomorrow by just continuing to figure out why our bar chart isn't rendering and see what's going on here. So thanks a million for joining me, and stay tuned for tomorrow's episode. Thank you. Appreciate it. Have a wonderful day, everybody. And yeah, enjoy yourself. Thanks.